Okay, guys, so here's the walk through the assignment for you. It's a standard breakdown we've been using all semester. We have an introduction and rationale, and the rationale is typically that, in technical and professional writing class, this is something you're going to be asked to do at some point, and we're preparing you for very practical work, and the performance review is something I'm doing over Christmas, and you'll have to do regularly. Um, and in this case, it's then tailored specifically to assessing the performance in our class. So it has a double rationale because performance review, we figured, can also function very effectively as the reflection on your learning in the course. And some of you know this pretty well, but it's worth a refresher. And some of you don't think about this regularly or haven't been instructed in this, that writing courses really need a reflective component to ensure adequate learning and transfer of learning. And while it can seem somewhat redundant or somewhat forced, and it comes consistently back into writing classes, we know through a lot of research that having students reflect in writing really does ensure that they transfer their skills much more fluidly from one class to another. And it's not a lot of work, and it's an important part of developing your ability to continue to improve your processes and concepts and experiences as much as possible. So the rationale's there, and it will help you transfer, to future writing situations. Because one of the bad ideas about writing we started with the semester, transfer is not easy, and as instructors, we've been working on solutions to that. So. If you look at the assignment description here, I've written this one tailored to our course a little bit and to our values that we've worked through. And I've just given you a breakdown. I mentioned like a 3 hour process, which is, similar to what a lot of exam times require. So I think that's also suitable for us. Um, I would recommend the 2 hour chunk or so as a meaningful drafting process around the following two goals that I've broken down for you here. One is, assessing and analyzing in writing. So make sure you're writing about this. This is why it's a draft. What learning outcomes meant to you at various points of the semester. As you see that here, perhaps noting your initial application email. I like the idea of doing some benchmarking on the whole, and that can seem cheesy at first, but that's why it's part of the draft. When you came into this class, initial expectations, your application email to the course, and when you're leaving the class. And then more importantly, I note here, single out a few things. Try to single out concepts, processes, and experiences that matter. If this was like a more advanced class, or if you were studying to become a technical communicator, we'd read pieces about how learning really is calibrated between one's ability to think about concepts that matter. You have to understand usability really in depth, rhetoric really in depth, but they have to have meaningful use value to you as a writer, communicator, researcher. And processes, obviously, the class has been very process driven. So, we've had baseline writing processes that involve planning, talking, invention, rough drafting, research, revision versus editing, testing. And we've drawn that out a little bit more for you, I think, than you've had in the past. That's stuff you've been working on since high school, but people still do conflate revision and editing all the time. Revision is meaningful changes to ideas and to meaningful work, adding and subtracting and things like that. And editing is focusing on mechanics and grammar. Um, those are important. I can see I screwed up the formatting here a little bit. I'll fix that in a second. You focus on the procedures because procedures are important. So we have those procedures. We have design thinking procedures. We had added stuff like testing and usability testing, and of course we had sort of real world experience with collaborative processes and the ups and downs and pitfalls and meeting minutes and cross team collaborations and much more dynamic work there. So. And then overall, processes and concepts are helpful intellectual tools and practical tools. But then there's something that should be said about experiences, like something that you just did as a human embodied in a situation that was meaningful to you. If you talk about each of those three things in a draft, it will help learning stick. So, that's what I think would be a very meaningful draft. And that's why I think a couple hours working on that is great. Like, put on some nice music and think through the course and try to do that well. If you do that, you'll be in pretty good shape. The other thing you need to do in the drafting phase is to specifically review some actual work that you did that gels with those concepts, procedures, or experiences. And so 2 here asks you to do that and review. It gives you an array of things that you can review. Our wiki is a great resource there, right? Because we have a long schedule. I put a lot of work into organizing things, and it's a messy archive at this point. But you can go through and find your work and reference it against what we were learning at that point in time in the semester. Once you've done that, you've got some meaningful examples, and you could discuss those in writing too in your draft. I would take a break, and then I would polish it with the next phase. So look at at this point, look at some examples. Then you can take anything from those examples that you like to help structure your draft. It will still be you. It should be your reflection. I don't recommend looking at the examples before you draft your own performance review. And then roughly follow this, fairly closely, not roughly, fairly closely follow this outline to formalize your performance review. So with an introduction, a couple 1 to 2 paragraphs, and the performance review, like the body section here, where you sort of organize what you did in your draft and focus on a couple new things, because a revision is not always just organizing what you have and polishing it up. Your draft is good, but you're going to fit most of your draft into the individual performance. Some of it might fit into collaborative performance. And then there's a short section I want you to include there about formally describing your projects in very succinct language, 5 sentences or less. Describe them as genres that are meaningful to you, and follow this prompt here. Describe your process or the project lifecycle. Stress the concepts of processes that matter. Because you drafted the way I asked you to draft, this should be really quick, and this should be the section where I ask you to please post these project descriptions to your final portfolio. Some of you have done that already. Some of you haven't worried about it. This is no additional time. This is how you're finishing your portfolio. This is how you get that 5-point promised full grade. It's just fulfilling that little contract for us at the end of the semester. And I also think this is where you can see that you're not just writing to yourself or to me, but you're describing projects that are in an intelligent way that other people understand the value of your growth as a communicator, right? And then conclude any way you want. Look at the examples and how they round out their discussion of the course, and talk to me for a second or whatever, okay? So it's not a super hard assignment. I do think like a 3-hour guideline works for most of us. That's 3 focused hours, and then it's meaningful. It's a meaningful project. It's a good part of the semester, and it's a really nice way to wrap it up without a lot of setup. And I've been recommending to instructors that they don't spend 2 classes teaching the assignment. It should be personal. It should be approached in your own time, and that's the way to do it, I think, right now. And you take care of it in that way, I think you'll get a solid grade on the performance review. I want to close on a note saying I'm really happy with the semester overall. Most of you will have you would get full credit for a performance review and full pay raise. Those of you who have to assess some of your performance and figure out where you need to grow, this is a good opportunity to do so too. So it's been an enjoyable semester, really very much. Okay, double thumbs up pedagogy. Take care. I'll be in touch. I'll send a lot of updates about Tech Town stuff next semester. Cheers.